Welcome to this episode of A Facilitator's Journey. Today I am talking with Ed Reid, the MD of TAB. TAB stands for the Advisory Board. Ed has a franchise for this amazing board of, it's a group that bring people together who are running their own small businesses, and you want to have a community, you want to feel less lonely, you want support, you also want ideas and advice on how to run your business. So Ed is going to share with us his thoughts, his ideas that are useful for us as facilitators and trainers, coaches and consultants to know. So you know what to do, team. Get a cup of tea, come join me on the pink chair, tune in your ears and enjoy this episode of A Facilitator. Cool. Hey, Ed.
Hi.
Good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm very well indeed. I'm a bit moany today because it's wet outside, and it shouldn't be wet outside because I'm in Gibraltar where the sun is supposed to shine every day.
It is, whereas in the UK it's blue skies.
So I've been told, which is even more upsetting.
So Ed, welcome to A Facilitator's Journey. Ed, a question I ask all my guests is, how do we know one another?
So we go back a very long way, longer than I suspect either of us would really want to think about. But we both worked together for Guinness back in the day, early in our careers, when we probably had loads of amazing energy and all that kind of stuff, and we're learning lots. Well, I certainly felt like I was. A pretty steep learning curve, that, but great fun. But that was, it's back in the late 90s.
27 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there we go.
Wow. Gosh. So Ed and I were both in various sales teams for Guinness, and then that merged to Diageo.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened was, last year I was on a long run, and when I'm on a long run, I plug in my headphones, and I was listening to a particularly favourite podcast of mine called the High Performance Podcast with Jake Humphries. And your voice came out, and I was like, stop the clock. And at times I'm running, and I can see exactly where I was running. And I was like, and it was like, hold on a minute, what's Ed up to? And so you were on that podcast as a founder of a business, and you were sharing with 3 other entrepreneurs your learnings. Can you describe for the listeners and the viewers what you do, the name of your business, so that we can understand more?
Yeah, sure. I upset a lot of people's walks and runs that week, actually, with that podcast. I was getting comments flying in from all over the place. What are you doing? It was amazing, actually. I might talk about that at some point. But so I run a business called The Alternative Board. We're all around the UK. There's about 50 of us, and we exist to help business owners of SMEs be less lonely. Particularly as they grow, they often become even more lonely, although you think they might not, but the pressures grow as their teams grow and their revenue grows and all that good stuff, but more big decisions that they've got to make. And we basically facilitate meetings of SME owners so that they can talk to one another about all of the stuff they've got going on, the good stuff and the difficult stuff.
Nice. And so I was saying to Ed, normally the guest who comes on A Facilitator's Journey is another facilitator or trainer who owns a business. I've deviated, team, from my own rules here, because I think what Ed knows and is happy to share with us is gold dust for us. And immediately you said a couple of things that caught my ear. You're there to help alleviate the loneliness. And one of the things facilitators and trainers often talk about, we're professionally lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And whilst everyone goes, oh, but you're working with people every single day. Yes, we are. We're going into corporates, we're going into businesses and organizations and running workshops, or we're coaching one-on-one. They're not our people. And you can't talk to them about some of the gritty stuff that is happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. So it'd be good to talk about professional loneliness with you. And also, what is it like to run a business? And you work with lots of different types of SMEs who are, but they will probably, there's some similarities, I'm sure. There's some fundamental challenges that all of us would recognize.
Yeah.
And I'd also love to talk to you about the benefits of having your own external board of people, of cheerleaders who understand you and your business and help you probably make some informed decisions that on your own is harder.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, happy to talk about all of that.
Oh my God, we could talk about it all. And community, we haven't even mentioned that. Like,
no.
Your thing's a big community as well. So.
Yeah.
Where should we go in this conversation? Okay, it might sound ask about face. What are some of the things that you hear coming up often from your community about running their own business? The good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah, so there's loads of different ways to approach that question, I guess. But we've identified a handful of things that every SME at some stage or other has challenges with. And this is it's either the business or the person running the business. So 3 really obvious ones are time, how they prioritize it, money, how they spend it, how they find it, and people. So those are 3 things that, if you're running a business, you are always going to have some highs and lows around those 3 elements. And then there's another 3, which is vision. So a little bit like, is someone really clear about where they're going and where they're taking their business? Then strategy. So if you're clear about where you're going, you've still got to know how to get there. And then the final one is exit. So, do you just down tools and lock the door and walk out at the end? Which would be a real shame if all you've done is, fine for some people, but is just driven income. But actually, why wouldn't you try and build an asset that you can sell? So yeah, those are kind of six areas that are always provide kind of endless things to talk about.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about them for myself right now. So time, money, people, vision, strategy, and exit. The first 2, like prioritizing my time, I've just had the epiphany. So right now, when we're recording this, is end of February 25, and one of my epiphanies is I run 3 businesses. So I have a big focus on working with corporates. We have the SOF community, and at this point we have SoFest festival that we're running, and those 3 areas all generate different kinds of money for one thing, or not, is what I'm learning, and also require different time, but also different kind of thinking.
Yes,
which I find interesting. Like, how do I chunk my time to be more effective? I think the one, and I think a lot of people listening to this would actually resonate with the time, money, and even people, whether that's people in their own teams that they're working with or associates. So like bringing people in to support them. I talk from myself, and this is the reason I do this podcast is to work out stuff for me. How clear am I on my vision? So do I have a strategy? Sort of, but no. And do I have an exit plan? I am probably that person is building just to say thank you and goodbye. But Ray, you just said, what a shame. But my brain goes, well, what would I sell on or pass on? Like, I really can't get my head around like what I do would be of use to other people, but it probably is, and it maybe needs an external to go no.
Yeah. Can I throw a random stat at you, because it's probably my favorite one, partly because it's so shocking. So this was a survey done of thousands and thousands of business owners in the States who had sold their businesses, and 68% of them, after they'd sold, experienced profound regret. And the primary reason for that was around legacy and feeling like there were 2 reasons. Legacy was, right, okay, well, have I left that business and those people there in as great a shape as possible? And will someone continue to do all the great work that I was doing in that business? And feeling like it hasn't continued in the same vein as they'd have wanted it to.
I've heard this. Yeah.
And then the other one was because they were so wrapped up in their own business, it was their life, that their kind of sense of purpose after they'd exited was massively challenged because they hadn't had a plan for what to do afterwards. It was like, well, I've got the money, or whatever that might be, big or small, but and I'll be fine. And then suddenly someone says, "Oh, well, what do you do?" And they're like, "Well, I don't know. I'm a bit lost. Yeah, I play golf, or I go for coffees with my mates. I mean, what do you do?"
Oh, that's actually really just made me go cold inside.
I'm sorry.
Thinking, no, but it's a
like,
good
have a
one
plan,
because I fight against plans, and yet
and lots of people do.
Talk sense.
Yeah.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, loads. Oh God, yeah. The amount of people who've just like, no, I'm not going to play your game of having strategies and plans. And I've never needed one before. I thought, well, okay, fair enough.
Good luck with that. I'll see you in a year's time.
Yeah,
we'll reevaluate that conversation.
Yeah.
Actually, you're making me think of two things though. So, School of Facilitation is 10 years old this year, and it's probably the last 2 years. I feel like I've got a grown-up business, and what I mean by that is, and it's always been a grown-up business, but I've got people in the business. It's not just me. So I feel a responsibility for bringing in the money. Like we're known in our sector. Whereas beforehand, because it was often just me on my own, I felt like I was just playing.
Yeah. Very common. Right. Okay. Yeah. And that transition is extremely common. That you get to a point where it just feels like there's a bit of extra responsibility in there for a little bit more focus probably required. The growing up bit, the sort of professionalizing bit is extremely common.
And where you see businesses going through, like, that's a great word, like professionalizing, what parts of our business what parts of the business needs to be professionalized that you've seen is beneficial for people to start thinking about? And actually, second part of that question is, you wish they did it sooner rather than later?
Yeah. So again, kind of potential multifaceted answers to that, because lots of it is dependent on the individual actually. In terms of what they've, because lots of people set up something on their own and they are actually really, kind of almost without realizing it, they're pretty professional about how they're operating their business. But, if you're not thinking occasionally at least of, right, well, what am I doing from a sales function perspective, which is still you, but it's like, well, am I spending some time on my, selling and a bit of a sales strategy? Similarly, marketing, how am I going to get in front of people in order to be able to sell? What am I doing from a kind of personal development perspective? That's like your HR department.
Yeah.
And there's obviously the finance, like, well, am I just looking at, kind of what cash I'm bringing in and then taking it straight back out of the business, depending on how you're structured? Or are you thinking of something a bit more robust, which is, right, well, what's my sales target? What's my profit target? How am I going to pay myself? And actually do that on a slightly more thought through basis than what have I got in the bank and I'll just take it out. Because then, I mean, you see people get into all sorts of trouble on that when they haven't fully understood tax implications, or are they taking dividends, are they taking salary, or all that kind of stuff.
So on that, I'm just putting faces if you're listening versus watching. So just on your finances, all I'd say as team is have a minimum of 2 business bank accounts, and one of them can be your operating account where everything comes in and everything goes out. Please have another one though, that if you're limited, you are accruing your VAT and your tax, because your VAT is not yours to spend. I sort of bang on about this. An accountant who I used to have very early on just said the number of people he saw spending their VAT money and then panicking when it came to paying the quarterly bill. It shocked him. So look, let's just put that money straight away into another account. Find a business savers account as well. You can earn a little bit of interest on it, but just put it to one side.
And have a good accountant.
Oh my God.
I mean, that is at least as important as that. And from day one, like how you set up and what structure you're going to use, is all dependent on where you're wanting to take the business. So please don't go into something without thinking through any of that. Because accountants aren't expensive for what you get, what they'll save you. And
please get an accountant.
Yeah.
Spend the money. And I know there's people out there going, but I can't even afford to pay myself right now. And I'm like, but you could get yourself into a bigger pickle by not talking to an accountant. And then accountants that, like my accountant, they do our quarterly P&L, they do all our VAT, they do my year-end accounts, and they're, I don't know the exact number, £1,500 a year. And for me, that's like the best spent $1,500. And Holly will have conversations with me like ad hoc when I need some help. And she also helps my bookkeeper, and coaches her. We pay for that sometimes, but I don't mind that because then everything's legitimate and I'm not going to get shouted at by HMRC.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Have you had experience, not personally necessarily, any of your members had that happen?
Yeah, when they've, and I genuinely can't think of an instance where that's been because they've been anything other than just negligent. And, but it's still, there isn't really an excuse for that, because because it isn't difficult if you've got someone who's given you some basic advice to get going. And you do get into a rhythm, don't you, of,
you do.
Kind of, right, what have I got to do each quarter? What have I got to do each year end? You kind of, on the business side and on the, the personal income side as well. And it's, once you get into that operating rhythm, it's fairly straightforward.
And understanding what you need to do. I do actually at times now, I'm very grateful for the experience you and I had at Diageo and Guinness from a sales point of view and on the finances. So we were taught to accrue, we were taught to like look at things from a project perspective, both the income and the outgoings and like how profitable was a barrel of beer, yada, yada, yada. But I didn't appreciate at the time, and probably until I started my own business, how many people do not have that knowledge.
Yeah, and I think probably that, well, certainly the experience I've got of, having seen where people have gone wrong, it's mostly to do with a tax of some shape or form. It's either VAT or, or corporation tax or income tax.
Oh my God, corporation tax. I don't know how to explain to my friends who don't have their own businesses that I feel like I'm double taxed at times. And I earn all this money. I then, because we do make profit, it's like, before I can even think about taking my dividend, I have to give 25% of that to the government. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And then I've got this chunk of money that I can then draw down for myself. And then I'm taxed all over that as well. And I'm like, and everyone goes, oh, it must be amazing running your own business. Like you've got all this, they don't say this bit, all this cash. I'm like, trust me, I don't.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're dead right on that. Psychologically, it's really difficult, particularly if you haven't planned for it. But I think one of the most interesting elements of the perception of business owners is, I was talking about this on another podcast recently, is that, most people think, oh, they're sort of fairly indestructible. They must have absolutely heaps of cash, the perfect work-life balance and sort of no pressure, because they don't have to be in an office at, 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And it's every element of that is wrong, pretty much.
Correct.
So, I mean, which is why we exist. It's why we do what we do, because we know that people running businesses and all of that, in my experience, pretty much just gets tougher the bigger the business gets. And that's also an interesting perception, because people running smaller businesses think, oh, hang on a second, you're running a bigger business. Well, that must be easier. And you must be, better off, and you must have more time to yourself, and none of that's necessarily true.
So true. My year end, I do a classic calendar year end. So I got my accounts through at the end of January for 2024, and I looked at, and it's great. It shows you 23, 24, so I could compare them side by side. And whilst my turnover was down by 100K year on year, the profitability was exactly the same. And so like the profitability was exactly the same, and I still paid myself the same, and it was still okay. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, It's things like that, getting under the numbers, and it's not my favorite thing to do, but I also know I have to at times. So suddenly you go, oh, just because I'm sure you talk about this, like turnover is a vanity number.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you've made 6 figures. Congratulations, you made multiple 6 figures. But actually, how much of that is profit versus outgoing cost?
Yeah.
Anyway, I could bang on about that till the cows come home. One thing you said is like before you set up a business, like know what your different like structures are. So let's maybe talk about when someone's going, and this happens in my world, people are thinking about leaving an organization, like they might be made redundant, or they just have got this itch they need to scratch, and they're like, I want to step out, I want to become a facilitator, a trainer, a coach, a consultant. What are some of the things people should think about in terms of setting up a business?
Yeah, so
they leave?
And this is exactly what I was talking about in terms of get an accountant almost before you've started. So they'll advise you on this, because they'll work through the pros and cons with you. But I mean, if you're right at the start, your choices are broadly, you either go sole trader or you go limited, and you either go VAT registered or you don't go VAT registered, or you could go flat rate VAT, which is starting to get slightly more technical again. But those are really only the key choices. Or I suppose you could set up as a limited liability partnership, something. If you're in professional services, it might be a bit different, but or going into business with someone else.
So let's just quickly do a description of each of those. You don't have to like give big detail. What is a sole trader?
So that is just you operating on your own as an individual. So you're not running a limited company.
Okay.
And
benefits?
Sort of probably a bit of sort of freedom of maneuver. There's possibly there'll be some tax benefits depending on how big you want to get.
Right.
At which point the tax benefits then become disincentives. So which is why you need to talk to your accountants about what your plan is and what you're roughly going to be turning over in year 1, year 2.
Okay.
And there's also, some people would say, well, just have your structure that's perfect for you at that particular point. Whereas if you're going to have to change your structure and go limited in, 7 or 8 months time, it's like, what's the point? You might as well just go limited at the start. In my view, just save yourself the hassle.
And what's a limited structure about?
So that's then when you become you set up a limited company and you'll be the director of said limited company. And you can, so that's then separate again from any of the VAT stuff. So a lot of people I don't understand particularly why, but a lot of people do think, oh, well, if I'm a limited company, I've got to be VAT registered, and you don't. So this is a separate thing again. And VAT registration is then all to do with, you have to be VAT registered over a certain amount, and I'll be out of date on this, but it'll be roughly 80-90 grand of turnover.
I think it's about 84-85 K.
But so that sounds about right. But even there's pros and cons that you want to be thinking about that, other than just at what point do I have to do that? Depending on the kind of businesses that you're working with, they may insist that you're VAT registered actually if you're supplying them.
Who's say that?
So businesses, your clients might may well insist on that, or they expect you to be.
So also just sole trader versus limited. My understanding is liability. So if you're a sole trader, the liability sits with you. So suddenly, as the individual human being. So if someone turns around and says, we're suing you because, well, in our world, it's like you haven't done something or you've caused emotional distress, so I'm going to sue you. It sits on your shoulders. So my equivalent is your assets are at risk. Versus a limited company, the liability sits within the company and not you as the individual.
Absolutely.
So they would sue the business.
Yeah, and that is why it's called limited.
Okay. I hadn't thought about that. And then VAT registration is a good one. I went limited and back registered straight away because I knew I wanted to work in organizations that were global. And I did it purely for a face that I look professional. Like I look like I'm bigger than I am necessarily at that point. However, I weirdly, of course, you always do this. You leave your company and you go back and do a bit of work for them. And I did one piece of work for Diageo, only one small bit, but it was really important for me that it was a limited business and therefore had that professional piece. Also with the limited company, you get to register your business at Companies House, which is, I think, important as well. Just another stamp of officialness. And then on the VAT piece, you mentioned something called flat rate VAT. That is a very useful thing to talk to your accountant about, especially if your turnover is anywhere between 85 and £210,000.
It will be around that. I lost track of those exact numbers now, but that'll be roughly correct. Yeah.
And what that means is, so currently the VAT I pay, maybe Ed pays, is 20% on everything. I on all my invoices, I put 20%. And everybody puts 20%. However, there's this middle ground for smaller businesses that it's a flat rate. So it might be 17% or 15%. I'm not too sure of the exact number, which is what you are then charged. So you end up, there's a little gap. So you do make, either it just flattens out everything or you do make a little bit of money.
But you're right, it's only for very specific circumstances in a specific time period. So that's why you definitely need to talk to an accountant on that.
Yeah. But it is so beneficial, I think, just to have that knowledge, because again, unless you happen to be leaving a finance job, many of us don't know this stuff when we leave. And people think, oh, it's really complicated. It isn't.
No.
I promise you it isn't. But please find a good accountant to have that conversation with. Also, the other person I invested money in when I first left was technology ed, because I'm not someone who can build a website or know how to do that. So that was my other choice to have a website. So
I think some of what you were saying about some of the supplying into Diageo and wanting to feel like you're a limited company and a bit more grown up almost. The website thing's the same. I mean, you need it obviously from a marketing perspective, but actually just the sense of, okay, I've got my own website. Psychologically, it's a step forward, isn't it?
Can you tell us a bit more about the alternative board? Because one of the things that I'm curious about is the power, and we both talked about being professionally lonely, like it's a lonely industry to be. So how does it work, and what are the benefits of having an external board?
Yeah, so if you imagine as the business owner, you can make any decision you like, can't you?
Right.
That can be brilliant in terms of having that freedom, but actually also the pressure's on in terms of, well, what happens if I make the wrong decision? Or you might, and often it's not a binary, do I do this or don't I? It's, well, how do I do this? So anyone who is, so we call our clients in TAB, we call them members. So they become a member of a board. So we do lots for them, but the main thing in terms of this loneliness bit and how we combat that is that every month they'll sit around a table with half a dozen other business owners, and it'll be the same group month in, month out. And we group people so that they're roughly running businesses of a similar level of complexity. They've got to be non-competing as well, for fairly obvious reasons. And at each of those board meetings, every one of them gets half an hour where they get to bring a challenge they've got or an opportunity that they've got, and the others question them on it and kind of really drill into what that topic really means for that individual at that moment. So it's not a generic, I want to sell more, how do I do it, or go and read a sales book. It's like, actually, for you right now, doing what you do, and with all the resources or maybe scarce resources that you've got, how are you going to sell more? So the others, they question and then they give advice. So if you were sat on one of our tables and you brought your topic, you guaranteed that you're going to get 6 pieces of advice from the other people around the table, some of which you'll agree with, some of which you may not, some of which you may not have thought of at all. But you make a commitment to those 6 people to say, right, I'm going to take on board all of that. I'm going to go away and do this, whatever it might be. And next month when we meet, I'll give you an update on what I've done. So not only are you getting, hopefully a breadth of advice from people who know exactly what it's like to be you. That's a really, really important bit. So it's not consultants coming in who don't have a feel for the pressures that you're under, because it's people who are just like you, but just with a different knowledge base and expertise because of what they've done. So you make a commitment to them, and then you've got to report back on it the following month.
Okay.
And then the rest of the meeting, you're doing the same with all of the others. So you're questioning them, you're advising them. So it's peer-to-peer advice, and
accountability as well.
And accountability. So you get away with it in the first couple of months by making commitments that you're never ever with the best will in the world going to do in a month. Then you get found out a month later, and it's like, right, okay, well, next time I'm going to make a commitment that I know I can do within this month, so that I can report back on it, because it's a genuinely uncomfortable place to sit if you're the only person who hasn't done what they said they were going to do. Because everyone else is like, well, hang on a second, Kirsty, we spent half an hour on your topic last month helping you, and you haven't done anything. Like, it's an awkward, sweaty palm moment for you, and it should be.
And what benefits do your members tell you they get by having this accountability and this connection every month?
Yeah, so it's it's very varied in terms of the role it serves for our members, because they're typically, they've started employing people more often than not. We do have a few one-person businesses who would always have aspirations to kind of grow beyond that, and therefore they think, well, I'll invest now. But most of them are probably 10 to 100 employees, so they're moving beyond micro. So for some of them, it's about it's the combating loneliness. For some, it's they feel like they nearly always join because they want to move their business on another level, whatever that means for them.
Okay.
And sometimes that can mean helping them get out of the doing and become a little bit more, even actually stepping from being MD to chair, for example, where the business becomes less reliant on them. So it could be about planning for an exit longer term, but a lot of the time it's just about wanting to grow and do it well, and know that you're not missing tricks, and and that's where when you've got half a dozen every month, they're going, well, why haven't you thought of that? It's like, well, why would I have thought of that? I've never heard of it. It's like, well, I've been doing it 3 years. It's like, oh, right, okay, well, I'll go and do that then, or versions of it. So
yeah. I had a similar conversation. I had a full day of coaching yesterday with a group of facilitators, and one of the guys, he's like year 4, and we were talking about finance, and I was like, how? And he's like, oh, do I bring someone in to help me with the finances over and above my accountant? I said, but why wouldn't you? And he said, well, I've got a very particular way of doing things, and I was like, I've got alarm bells going here. I said, how do you do your invoicing? And he said, well, I have a spreadsheet, and I record everything. And I went, can I just check, do you use electronic reporting, like QuickBooks, Xero, Free Agent? And he was like, oh no, I haven't thought of that. And I was like, this is a really easy win. And he's like, oh yeah, but, and you could hear all the resistance come up. So I was a bit like, how about next time, because I managed to walk to 10K yesterday doing coaching calls because the weather was so good. I just walked outside. Anyway, so next time we're sat down in front of the computer, I'll show you into the back of our system.
Yeah.
I said, I promise you it is. I resist using systems as well.
Oh, it's so easy though.
This is so easy.
Yeah.
So things like that would be an example.
Yeah, it would.
We're probably in the micro space, a lot of the people listening to this.
Yeah.
But there are things that you can be doing.
Yeah.
But also I think the power of having like a group around you that you do meet with and you do share. And I think the other thing that I'm noticing is having people outside of your world is powerful.
Yeah.
Otherwise it becomes that echo chamber. And we're all
it does,
yeah.
I mean, the other thing that I've always loved about it as, someone who facilitates those meetings is that you learn so much. The stuff I know now about, in fact, the stuff I now know relative to what I knew when I started the business 15 years ago is, quite frankly, embarrassing in terms of what I didn't know back then. Sort of putting myself out there as I can help. And the knowledge bank that you build in 15 years, but across different sectors, but also actually just kind of in different functions within any business as well, is amazing. And you're learning that from people who are, doing it. Yeah.
And I guess something else has just come up in my head is, do you notice that the people who are in their businesses and doing it don't always recognize their level of knowledge and expertise and how much they just do innately? And this is that you can point that out to
people. And they could be some of the, just like the best moments when they know that something that they've just got inside them, that it's helped someone else massively. And they'd never have put any kind of weight on the fact that they happen to know stuff, because it's just like, well, I just know it.
I get that with my friends locally. I am the go-to person to design a workshop. Literally, my girlfriends come to the house. They bring cake. I provide the tea. I get the flip charts out, and they're like, "Right, I've got this session." And some of them work for really big businesses. I'm like, "Okay, let's whip it up." And then they just sit there, and I go, "So what I would be saying at this point?" And they're like,
"Yeah."
And I'm like, "Oh, but this is really obvious."
Yes, but they're looking at you going, "Oh my God, I've actually now get it why this is so skilled," and because it's innate knowledge for you, and it's
but it would be like something like some of your members, like, I don't know, they're head of innovation, and they're like, "No, this is how you bring a product to market, and this is what you do," or no, this is how you actually do a marketing campaign.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Okay. Yeah.
I love it. Well, I did cut you off at the knees when I was saying, like, if someone's leaving an organization, and we talked about, like, what do they need to know, and you said an accountant, sole trader, limited, VAT registration. Was there anything else that people would need to think about as they're leaving?
Yeah, so, well, you're going to like this given your previous comment, but I mean, for me, is they need a plan of some sort. And one of the things we focus on with people is not just go with the company plan. Like, you actually need a plan for yourself. Why are you doing this in the first place? Where do you want your company to get you? Because if you get, particularly if it's just you at the start, then you've got to be really clear about, where your boundaries are in terms of, the kind of your work-life stuff. You've got to be clear about, where you're wanting to take the business in order to get you to a place in your, in your life, financially or time-wise, or family commitments, or, whatever it might be. I mean, I've seen a lot of people, the pain that has been created by either not understanding or not managing other people's expectations in their family.
Yes.
And what's involved in the first year or two, where it is, it gets stuck in a big way, isn't it? And you, by definition, are going to be making sacrifices. So, expectation management of your better half, or your kids, or whatever, is pretty bloody important, actually.
I've noticed that. I think that's really interesting. So you need a plan. It's a business plan, but it's a plan for yourself as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And some honest conversations by the sounds of things.
And I mean, and also, yes, exactly. And I mean, also, you try and find your way of doing what we do on a sort of more professional basis in terms of, peer-to-peer meetings, but find some people who you can trust and you can genuinely talk openly to, who get it. And you'll definitely have people in your network, where it might not be someone who lives next door, but you'll have people who you've worked with in the past, or, that's so important, that just to have that, the psychological support as much as anything else.
Oh my goodness. So I said, I noticed as I was leaving Diageo, and I did have a plan. So I had the financial plan of how much money do I need to survive? Because I was going into training and doing associate work. So I wasn't launching my own business at that time. I was going to go out for other people. I guess, and I noticed, and I did some blogs on it, I wrote back, I had the 4 E's.
Okay.
So I had the elders, so the people who came before me that I could go and ask for advice and help and ideas. I had the energizers. So these are the people who I would go to at times when I was feeling a bit low about stuff, and they would like cheer me on. Oh, I've forgotten the other two ones.
They're two really good ones. I really
those
like
are two good ones. So,
start.
energize, elders. I'll find it. I'll write it in the show notes, team. I'm so sorry, but I had, I guess, my version of that board, and I had different people took in different roles.
Yeah.
Oh, the ears was another one.
Yeah.
So they were like my coaches. So they weren't necessarily telling me what to do, but they were listening and like asking me those awkward questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. So yeah, I think that's my version. And it worked. It was super helpful. And probably I've lost a bit of that to this day because I've been so focused in the business and noticing I need a bit more support.
Yeah. Outwardly. I mean, I think the thing that strikes me about that, at whatever stage you do it, is you have to accept that you're going to be a bit vulnerable. And that's, and that often doesn't go well with talking to people about, I'm going to go and set my own business up, because that, you know, that is, you almost need the opposite in terms of the mentality. Well, that's what you think you need. It's like, I've got to be brave and strong and, you know, all that
have
kind
my
of
shit
stuff.
Together.
And you do,
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And you do have to a degree, play that game and kind of, you know, to make sure that you're kind of as good as you can be. But equally, you've got to be prepared to be vulnerable. And that is hard. You know, that's hard. I think it's possibly harder for blokes.
I would say so. Because women, we're encouraged from I think from a young age, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to share. We sit in circles more naturally with other women and other girls, and we talk and we share.
Yeah.
Whereas I understand from my brothers and male friends, it's like,
yeah. Yeah.
But I wonder if that's changing as the Generation Z, as they're seeing what worked for us and what didn't work for us, and what they want to do differently.
Yeah, I suspect it is, and I hope it is as well.
I do,
you know, because I think it's really important that
being able to talk to someone and just go, this is rubbish.
Yeah,
I do find myself doing that though far too much in the world of social media though. Instagram. If you ever want to know what's going on in Kirsty's life, just go follow. Go follow Kirsty's Instagram profile. And everyone goes, "Oh my god, you're so," or my newsletter, "You're so vulnerable. That's really brave." I'm like, I just think I'm just talking and saying what needs to be said. But it does remind me of, you know, when we used to be in meetings at work, like in an organisation, and I did get myself into trouble because I would say things that I just blurted out and everyone would look at me and go, and then I just look at everyone and go, but you're all thinking it. And then everyone would go, yeah.
But
and I'm like,
so say it.
So I've just said it. And then it sort of would ease attention. I think I just do that now though, for small business owners. I'm just like, I'm just telling you what it's like.
Yeah.
Like I can't be one of those people in the influencer space or showing up on social media where everything is veneered and looks like, hey, I've got when they tell you they've done 6 figures, or they're very good at marketing themselves, but when you look below and look inside,
absolutely, no, I there's some very interesting kind of psychology going on, you know, in that sphere, I think, isn't there? But it's not a world I'd be particularly comfortable with.
You're a good Yorkshire. If you're a Yorkshireman, I can't imagine that would happen.
I should maybe try it.
Well, I think what you do at the Alternative Board, I mean, surely after the back of doing a podcast with the high performance team, what happened? Quick insight, because I love that podcast.
Yeah.
What was it like being on their podcast?
It was, well, I didn't know what to expect particularly. Okay. It was brilliant, actually, to be fair. Very professional, but very, you know, put you at ease. The other 3 guests were amazing. You know, I definitely looked at full on imposter syndrome in the kind of green room before. And And then each of the other three also said the same thing afterwards as well, which was funny. So all of us were there as imposters when we were looking at the other three, but they were great. And then Jake was unbelievable. I mean, like, so good at what he does, incredibly interested, genuinely, and then also what he pulled off at the end, which was when he did does the intro after you finish the conversation.
Yeah.
And he nailed that word perfect, better than I would have done if I'd scripted it, or even if someone else had scripted it for me. It was mental how good it was.
I've been rereading Bounce by Matt Side at Talent, Nature, Nurture. And it was just a very good reminder that when we see someone do something like you've just described, Jake Humphries, just nailed it, and you just go, oh my God, that's so amazing.
Yeah.
How long has he been in broadcasting? Yeah. How long has he been a visual and an audio journalist? He's got all of this practice behind him. He's got all the falling flat on his face moments, the errors he might have made on television and on the radio.
Yeah.
That's his thing that he just does innately.
Correct. Yeah.
But isn't it wonderful when you see it happen? You just go.
Well, when he said, he literally just sat, a meter away from him. And he just goes, oh, just give me, he said something, I need like 30 seconds just to sort of get my head together. And, but chat amongst yourselves. And we did. And he went, right, okay, I'm good to go. Just looked at the camera, boof, like that. It was, and then stopped recording. And the four of us were just like chins on the floor. It was, he's like, what? And, all of us like, that was incredible. And he just went, well, that's what I do.
To your point, there you go, and that's what I get. You'll get that reaction when you do things for people. I get that reaction when I do. Here's another question I have for you, though. So we often talk on here and other places about being a podcast guest and the benefits it brings or it has for you or for your business. What benefits did you or TAB, the Alternative Board, see as a result of being on that global podcast?
Yeah. So some kind of tangible ones in terms of, it drove a number of sort of sales leads and, had people getting in touch with us who wouldn't have done otherwise, for sure, which is always nice. But more than anything else, probably, I think it just gave us all a bit of confidence, as an organization that like, okay, well, that's quite cool that we've been asked, because I think there were 480 people or something who applied to sit at around that table.
Wow.
And I think, so I think just more from a brand perspective than anything else than, I think all of us certainly in the UK organization just thought, okay, well, we can kind of hold our own here. Because they certainly everyone in my team in the UK, they certainly don't stand me on a pedestal, and I don't want them to ever. But I think they probably thought, well, if they can do that, then all of us could do that, and they're absolutely right. So a bit of kind of quiet confidence, I think, is what it gave us.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. And I think the way you've just described that, it's something that for podcasts, for me, it's just an awareness tool. It's a great way for people to meet you in a way that's non-committal, and also they hear about you, and they do. I don't know. Do you remember a lady called Helen Jane Nelson? HJ?
Yes. Yeah.
The HJ would talk about the sniff test. I think it was her.
Yeah.
She goes, people are they're sniffing you out. They're testing. They're working out. Are you my kind of person? What's your vibe?
Yeah.
She was one of my elders, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Well, a great one to have. Yeah. I'm still follow her on social media, actually. Yeah.
If you don't know who we're talking about, her name is Helen Jane Nelson. She is a white witch. She's shamanic. She's amazing and beautiful and lovely. Go find her on LinkedIn, and if you do make contact, tell her Kirsty and Ed sent you there to say hello. Ed, thank you for this conversation. Now, we finish every single podcast with some quick fire questions.
Okay.
Are you ready? She says, scrabbling to find the quick fire questions. Okay. First question. What advice would you give someone starting out?
Be kind to yourself and accept it's going to take longer than you think it's going to.
That's a truth. Who do you follow in social media land that you think others should too?
That's really easy. Jake Humphrey, I didn't follow him before, which I feel a bit guilty about, but I think he's very authentic. So I've gone from zero to super fan with him. But yeah,
I'm the same. What book do you recommend?
I think
Or
for
podcast?
your audience, the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, I think is one of the best. Right, perfect. Yeah, easy to
Brilliant.
read, and it's got some magic stuff in it.
Agree. And how have you invested in yourself or your business to support you in moving forward?
Probably primarily through, because we're a franchise, we're like really proud to be kind of full members of the British Franchise Association. So they have incredible kind of learning opportunities, and so I got professionally qualified through them as a qualified franchise professional, which is actually much harder than I thought it was going to be, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And then so there's kind of CPD that goes with that, and I'm surrounded by other really good people. So yeah, it's a bit of a given for me now, which is great.
I love that. Ed, how can people find you having listened to this podcast?
Either website, which is thealternativeboard.co.uk, or just find me on LinkedIn.
Ed Reid. Ed, thank you so much for being here today. I've loved that conversation. Could carry on and pick your brains on more things and what you notice, but we'll save that for another time. Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure. It's been great. I've really enjoyed that.
What a great conversation with Ed. I could have geeked out on his experience of the High Performance podcast for longer, but that's for me, not for you. I think what I'm reassured by is we don't have to do this alone, and that there are groups out there of organized groups where you can go and talk about your business, and there'll be people who want to support you and help you. I think there's a benefit of working with a group like TAB, because there'll be people who are not in your world. And whilst I know the facilitator, trainer, coach community, we are very generous and supportive of one another, we can become our own echo chamber. And therefore, I personally am now going to start thinking, like, where can I find people who have got their own businesses doing their own thing, but they're not in my industry, so I can go and find that support. And I'd encourage you to do the same. Now, a couple of notices. If you're listening to this and it's pre-June 2025, this is your call to get your SoFest ticket. The tickets sales finish on the 31st of April. Therefore, we really want to encourage you, if you're thinking of buying, to buy soon, because we have to close the doors, because we have to do lots of logistics and thinking, apparently. That's what my project manager tells me. So if you're thinking of coming to SoFest, come. We have an amazing lineup of speakers. We're going to be talking learning with Generation Z through to the orders of help. So do we overhelp or underhelp as facilitators? We're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about neuroscience. We're going to talk about the neuroscience of emotions. How do you handle emotions of your own and of your participants? We've got 4 different workshop zones, and we have even just booked an escape room. So if you are thinking of coming, please, please, please take this as a sign to go and buy your ticket. Otherwise, thank you for joining me today. Give us a love, give us a rating. Please leave a comment wherever you listen to your podcast. That would help us. And I'll see you again soon.